Hello?
Hello.
Yes, sir, you're on the air.
This is Robert from New Jersey.
Robert, time has come. Welcome.
Hey, how are you?
Just fine.
What you are asking is about a physical time machine that is built with nuts and bolts and the traditional methods, and yes, they do exist.
Wait a minute. You said, yes, they do exist.
Yeah.
Again, that's a statement of fact. How do you know that?
I know for a fact because I've seen and worked on them.
You've seen and worked on them?
What you are asking about, everything is based on the theory of Tesla. Tesla had these theories. He was by far in advance of Einstein. The first time the Americans tried this was the Philadelphia experiment. Tesla had backed out by that point.
Well, now, the Philadelphia experiment was not an experiment about time travel.
No.
It was an attempt to make a U.S. ship invisible. That's right. Now, the effects, however, may, in fact, involve time travel. No question about that. But
everything was based on the work of Tesla. You're talking about frequency and laser light, where the speeds have to... What you are talking about is energy that is required that is phenomenal because the speed that you have to go at light is incredible. Light has to reach startling speeds and frequencies.
You're claiming you've worked on one of these machines?
I can tell you I've seen them, and they're...
All right, well then tell me where.
There is one in the New York area, and the Nazis were working on time travel before and during World War II.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Those were the two experiences. The Soviets also tried, but failed miserably.
Can you tell me how you got access to see such a thing?
I can tell you no more than what I'm telling you now, but most of the people that have gone through the portals to travel have never come back.
Yeah.
So the vast majority, what you are asking, the vast majority of people that have gone through those portals, probably like the two people that you said who were working on these things, where they would have gotten the energy and the parts, because time is a third dimension concept. It does not exist in any other dimension.
Well, I don't know how long you've been listening to my program, but Madman Markham was, in fact, modulating the field he created with a laser. Did you know that?
Yes, and I heard that tonight.
Oh, you did know that.
What you are, well, see, the concepts, they do have the physics because all of this was based on the work of Tesla, who was by far ahead of his time. Most of his writings that were confiscated later on have never been seen.
That's right.
So he had a plan to light up the world with electricity as long as it would be free forever for humanity from his Tesla World Tower, which never came to fruition because there was no money in it, and he was squashed. But he did talk about these things, so all of the things that you are asking are based on his work. Number two, when you go through the portal, you don't know where you're going to actually wind up. You have rough estimates. You don't know
How rough?
Sometimes days, weeks, or years.
So you could miss your destination in time by days, weeks, or even years.
Yes. So what you are asking about is that most of these people who have gone through have never come back. Number two...
Well, the ones that I've experienced, that I've been talking to about time travel, have not come back. And you're telling me that's a truth of time travel? You know that to be a truth? That it's a one-way trip?
It depends what kind of machine you're using. Some are one way. Others you can get back, but you make the mistake of assuming that once you're there, it's going to be so easy. You're going back in time, different languages, different clothing, different customs. There are universal laws about interference in these things that cannot be broken.
What, for example?
Well, you make the assumption that the government and other people make who want to control destinies that things can be changed. There are certain very small things that can be changed, but major things cannot be changed. Time flows forward as it flows backwards. So in reality, there is really no future and no past, but just the eternal present. So you are asking various questions. If you would ask me more detailed questions, I could give you more detailed answers.
Well, you said there's really no future and past, but just a
An eternal present that is ever flowing forward and backward.
Then there is, yes, but you seem to be destroying your own contention that time travel is possible.
Let me just tell you this. What you are asking is based on something called sacred geometry. Bruce R. Cathy did work on this. There were other people who've done work on this, Tesla, and there were a few others. You can travel back 2,500,000 years in time before you hit a time wall. You can travel up to 2012, and you cannot go beyond that.
There's another wall at 2012?
The end of the Mayan calendar,
yes. Uh-huh. Is there any detail with regard to particularly the future that you can tell me?
Yes.
Other than the wall, I mean, it sounds like it all ends then. Otherwise, between now and 2012.
Let me answer some questions for you, Art.
Go.
You go back to 2,500,000 years ago. That is the end of Lemuria. You can go forward to 2012. There was a cataclysm on the planet 2,500,000 years ago that had to do with the sliding into a new time dimension that we are in now. It was a cataclysm at the end of the Lemurian civilization, which had lasted about 3 million years. So if you were to go back, if you could traverse that wall, which you cannot, it's a different race. It's actually a different type of time and a different type of dimension.
Is it another cataclysm at 2012? Do we know anything of the nature?
2012 is a positive date. Krishna gave that date, Buddha gave that date, and Christ gave that date. The Mayan calendar gives the date because we're going into fourth dimension. There is no more time in fourth dimension. It will be what Krishna talked about, the end of Kali Yuga.
And probably the Christians regard as the Lord coming back and, Christians all getting sucked up like in a vacuum. Yeah, okay. Huh. Well, there's somebody who claims to know that a machine exists, among other places, in New York State. Hi there, on the Time Traveler line. You're on the air.
Hi, Art. How are you today?
I'm all right. Where are you, sir?
I'd rather not say, if that's okay.
All right. No, that's perfectly fine. We allow anonymity here. You're calling this line for obvious reasons. You believe you've traveled in time.
Oh, I know I've traveled in time.
That's the attitude.
And I've traveled back in time, exactly. I'll try to keep it short.
All right. You've traveled back in time to this time, or you've traveled from this time back?
From this time to some type of start of creation. I'm not sure. But what had happened is a doctor had bought a home. He was his name is Dr. I don't know if I should
all right,
say.
No, don't. We don't need the name. It's not important.
All right. And he invited us to a barbecue as a housewarming, and he had dozens of birds and whatnot in his garage. And I thought nothing of this, and my wife and I, we had a great time. We were, joking and laughing, and there were several other neighbors. And he came up with a for instance, of have you ever gone back in time? Oh. And after the dinner and everything, I thought it was a joke. And he pulled out a contraption and put it in the backyard, and it was about the size of a small triangular phone booth. And I laughed. I thought it was ridiculous. And I said, how can you travel in time back on that? And he said, well, let me show you. And he put 2 or 3 birds, I think it was 3 birds actually, in the contraption.
Were you the only other one there?
No, my wife was there.
Your wife was there?
And actually another couple was there.
Okay. You put birds in.
And he started up a generator. And it made a horrific noise, and it was like a lightning bolt. It was something that I can't even describe. I couldn't even see for about 10 seconds after it illuminated in the corner of the backyard.
Uh-huh.
And I thought it was a trick. I thought it was a magic trick, and I laughed. I thought this is fantastic. He's a magician.
Right.
And
probably what I think too.
Well, about 10 minutes later, he said, no, watch it. It'll return. And with almost the same energy, not quite as much, it did return. There was a flash, and
the birds were back.
The birds were back. And I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. Was
this a regular physician kind of doctor? I mean, an internist or something or another normal, or was he?
He was in physics, I believe.
That kind of doctorate. Okay, all right.
No, he takes the dog, his own personal dog, and he does this. Now, to try to speed up the story, I know you're on a time frame.
No. Let's take this as it unfolds.
I'm just nervous. I never really spoke about this.
I understand. No, go right ahead. Let it unfold.
It's quite scary because I'll get to the point in a minute. He put the dog into this booth type thing.
Right.
And he energized it, and he did it again for a second time.
Dog goeth and cometh.
Now the dog has gone. Approximately 10 minutes later, he makes the dog return. Now he asks, do I have any volunteers? Now again, I think this is a magic trick.
And so?
I volunteer. Having probably a few too many Budweisers.
Okay.
At that particular time. And I sit in this contraption. Well, I've never been so scared in my life. It's like somebody put a flash bulb on a camera in my face.
Right.
That's all I can remember. I don't remember anything else.
You don't remember going somewhere?
I don't remember anything else but like a flash bulb in my face. That's all I can describe it as.
And the next thing you remember?
Well, a thump. Like I fell out of bed. A type of, like a boom, I've landed somewhere.
Right.
Now, I look, and I'm in the middle of some forest. I don't know where I am. I have no idea. I can't tell you where I am. I have no idea. And I get out, and I'm like, oh, my God, where am I? I don't know where I am. And now I'm in fear. Because I don't know what to think. I don't have any inclination. The only thing I can tell you is that it might be at dusk or dawn.
You could have been in the jungles of Brazil or something, for all you know.
I don't know. I can't even tell you. I don't know where I was. All I know is I was in some kind of forest.
Can you remember what you did? Did you walk? Were you able to function in this world, or were you just there and gone, or what?
No, I was able to get out of the vehicle, or whatever you want to call it.
It was there physically with you.
It was with me.
Gotcha. All right.
It was with me.
So out you go.
So I just stepped around, and I didn't want to go away too far away from the vehicle, figuring that I'd be stuck there.
Good figuring.
So, again, I don't know what time it is. It was either dusk or dawn. I don't know. And I got back in the vehicle. Maybe 3 minutes had taken place.
Right.
And there was like a little small. It's like a door. I don't want to call it a door, but it's an open. It really, there was nothing there, but it's like a door that you could open and you could walk out. I thought it was a joke. And then again, a flash bulb. Bam. I don't remember anything, and I remember people laughing, and that's all I can remember.
Like, hey, look, he's back. Ha ha.
Yeah, and that was it. Now.
Yes.
Then we get to the creepy part, and this is the scary part. Supposedly, this doctor that had invited us over, he just bought the house, he had only been living there for a month, commits suicide in his garage. From some obscure reason.
This is some time later. How much?
This is approximately 3 weeks later.
3 weeks later, you find the doctor is now the PhD has committed suicide.
Yeah. And there's nothing on the premises. His car is gone. And we're all, again, we're wondering what happened.
Yeah. And
there is no basis for why this man has done this. He was a jubilant single man in his 59, 60 50 years old, I would say. I think it was 59, if my memory is right. But anyway, and that was it. I mean, that was,
That's the story. That's plenty story. That's plenty of story, sir. Now, you think that you were either shifted geographically or shifted in time?
Oh, no doubt.
By whatever this was that he had. There was no trace of any of this machinery, I assume, after his death that you were aware of?
Well, no, not that I know of. And matter of fact, I inquired about it, and I said that, I made up a story, and I just happened to say, he was like a electronics tech, and he had stuff in the garage. Does anybody know about that? And they said no.
Do you think he's really dead?
I don't know. I just don't know. They had a hearse did drive up, and I did see them, putting,
a body,
what appeared was a corpse into the car. But again, without revealing any names or anything.
Please don't.
No, of course not.
I wonder if you were Dr. Mengele's first experiment there, or first human guinea pig. Have you ever wondered about that? In other words, he did it with the animals, but maybe, in sort of a jocular, ha, we're at a party, you've had a few beers, step in here and let me show you something really cool type thing.
Well, maybe.
Might have been his first.
It's a possibility, but...
And maybe he's now elsewhere, and what they think, the body they think they loaded in, is just the one they happen to load in this dimension.
It's a possibility, but after the fact, that when I came back and, we were talking later, and as the party, broke up and whatnot, I said, exactly what happened? And he said, well, I've discovered a generating system that, to put it in layman's terms, will transport you back and forth into time. And I said, that's absolutely ludicrous. I've never heard of such a thing. And he said, well, that's why I had you do it first, to experience it, because otherwise you would never believe me. And I looked at him and I said, I started thinking maybe he was crazy, but then I'm thinking, well, where was I? Where did I go?
Sure.
So, I mean, what better way to prove it to you than to do it first and then talk about it?
Listen, you're absolutely right. That's a whale of a story. That's a beaut. That's a real beaut. Maybe that man encountered somebody who had deciphered the nature of time travel, or the way to achieve time travel. I really do believe that there is a way to do it. There are ways to travel in time. And again, you've got to think about this a little bit. Even assuming that it's not until we get to Pentium 9000 that we discover time travel, if there is such an eventuality, which I believe there will be, then they could easily be here now. And there could be people who along the way discover it, and then it sort of blinks out. Hi there.
How you doing, Art?
I'm doing okay. This is Kate, right?
Yes.
Excellent, Kate. What can you tell us?
Well, I'm listening to you from KNZR, Bakersfield, California.
Yes.
I worked in Michelson Lab on China Lake Naval Base in the late 70s.
Oh.
And with what everybody's talking about, the stem cell research and the geneticists dying and the microbiologists, I knew one of these days I would be telling this story, and I feel it is necessary to do so right now.
Well, it's true. I mean, I've had I don't know how many stories about dead microbiologists. Now, maybe somehow the media just decided to start focusing on dead microbiologists, but it seems like there have been so many stories, Kate, that there's something to it, or am I wrong?
No, you're definitely correct. Definitely. And it's none too soon coming. It should have been out a long time ago, but you know how the government is. They don't want to talk about anything, but, we're going to find out. There are those of us who look into these things, and we're very determined and tenacious people.
Yes,
and,
well, you sound like it.
you betcha, honey. I definitely am.
You worked at China Lake.
Yes, I did, sir, in the late 70s after I graduated from high school.
Doing what?
I was working on the cruise missile project.
Oh.
I was a systems analyst and, basically just analyzing all of the information for the missile. And they had Tomahawk and Sidewinder out there also.
Uh-huh.
And the almost 2 years that I was working on the project, 3 days after starting at the lab, I met a gentleman who had an office down the way from mine, and I walked around in the first 3 days and said hello to everybody and introduced myself. And this gentleman was coming out of his office, and I knew by the nameplate that his name was Roger. So I yelled down, and I said, "Roger, how are you? Good morning." And he didn't stop. And I thought, okay, maybe he didn't hear me. Maybe he has a hearing disability or something. So I kind of hurried behind him and tapped him on the shoulder. And I said, "Roger, how are you doing today? My name is Kate. I just started. I just wanted to, introduce myself." And he turned and looked at me, and you could see in his face, his name was not Roger, to start off the story there. So over the next few months, I made friends with Roger. In the course of speaking with him on our lunch hours, he, from what I gathered, he was at Roswell. So he said he was 17. So that alerted me to the fact that he was born in 1930.
So this must have been a fairly older fella.
Yeah. So in 77, I'm not, let me see, 77, and he was born in 30. Well, you guys can do the math. I won't hold you up.
That's fine.
So anyway, during the course of the time that I was there, I only saw him maybe a dozen times. And what bothered me was the fact that he seemed like a very nice fellow, but there was something within his very being that he was fearful of. He did not want to speak of what he was doing. I asked him, "Well, what do you do here?" And he said, "Oh, I, do this and that." But it wasn't happiness that he, liked his job. He was very just fearful. You could tell that there was something going on that he didn't want to be a part of.
Did you find out what that was?
Well, when I asked him, I kind of trapped him when I asked him what he was doing. And he kind of hemmed and hawed about it. And then when I asked him again, he came out, "I'm a geneticist." And then he stopped really short and said, "I shouldn't have said that." And I said, "So you're in the medical field?" And he said, "I'm a geneticist." I said, "What is a geneticist doing on a naval base?" And he just looked at me and gave me a look like, "Don't ask. Do not say another word." And I said, "Okay, I'm not going to say another word."
Right.
So I didn't see him every day. There were weeks that would go by that I didn't see him. But one day he came out. I was sitting under the tree out in front having my lunch, and he came out and sat down. And I said, "My God, where have you been? I haven't seen you in ages. Are you okay?" He had this look of just mortal fear on his face, and he said, "You have been seen talking with me. Watch your back. Just
Great.
Be careful."
Great.
And me, I've been into UFOs and all sorts of things my entire life. And, of course, with the cruise missile, Tomahawk and Sidewinder out there, the sightings were incredible. And there are so many stories to that, but I won't bore you to tears with those tonight. But
no, stay with Roger. I mean, is there more? Do you know what Roger was doing? Did you figure out what Roger was doing?
I didn't know what Roger was doing, but he told me what he gave me an idea of what he was doing at Roswell. He said he was 17 years old. He had enlisted early. Back then, they didn't need the required documentation that they do now. So if you were 14 or 15, you could enlist, and they wouldn't ask any questions. And he told me that he was doing guard duty on something that happened in Roswell. And he looked at me like, "You don't need to know."
All right, Kate, hold tight. A lot of people want to know any more information you might have at all, Kate. I mean, here's a guy, a geneticist. He was at Roswell, and now he's not happy doing the work he's doing, whatever it is, at China Lake. Any more hints you can give us about...
Oh, definitely, Art. And I do apologize that this is such a lengthy story.
That's
There's
okay. Go right
a lot
ahead.
I'm leaving out, but just the gist of it is that was the last time I saw him. But during the conversation on my lunch hour, I let him know that I knew his name was not Roger. And I said, I know you feel that we're being watched, so why don't you just blink your eyes once for yes, twice for no. So the conversation was, you were at Roswell. He blinked once for yes. I said, the stories that we have heard over the 40-some-odd years, 50-some-odd years, are they all true? He blinked twice for no. I said, was there a crash of a UFO? He blinked once. The gist of it was that a little less than a fourth of the information that's out there is correct. He said the rest of it is not correct.
Even a fourth ain't bad.
Even a fourth ain't bad. And so I was being a smart person. I won't say that on the air, but I said, did this creature like strawberry milkshakes, like we all heard about? And his face softened as though he was remembering a memory that actually made him happy. And he blinked once. Huh. And my zinger, we all have our intuition. Well, I call mine my zinger, and my zinger went off. And I knew this man was there. I knew he was telling the truth, and I knew this man was scared. I never saw him again after that day. To get the story going, during this next 6 months, various animals were found out in Inyokern, which is west of China Lake, by about, about 8 miles.
Yes.
Being the animal lover I am, it really bothered me when I heard some of these stories. The first one was a rabbit, and this is pertinent to what I believe Roger was doing on the base.
Sure.
So some children, an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, and an 11-year-old, they're all brothers, were out riding their bikes in Inyokern where they lived, and they heard this horrible screaming sound, thought it was a cat. Well, they followed the sound and found a domestic rabbit, not a cottontail or a jackrabbit like you find out in the desert, but a domesticated rabbit, and it had a partial head growing out of the back of its neck. The mouth was clearly visible. It had one eye, and the rest of it, you could tell that it was like something trying to come out, like a Harry Potter movie, trying to come out of the back of its head. And it upset the boys so bad that one of the boys rode back, got his father. His father brought out a handgun, and once he saw it, he shot it, thinking it was just some environmental mishap.
Yes.
Well, the kids didn't want to leave the rabbit, so they buried it. And the next day, they went back to put flowers on its grave and to say a small prayer because their father was in such a hurry to get him away from it that they found the carcass missing. It had been dug up by an animal. Great. Well, another cat was found, and this cat was fine. There was nothing wrong with it. It was not upset, hurt, or anything, but it had 2 tails.
2 tails.
2 tails.
Roger's work.
Could be. Could very well be.
How many animals like that?
My story's 18. I'm sure there's more than that.
18 animals in the area.
The biggest one was some kids, some college kids, driving north on 395, heading towards Mammoth for a camping trip. They hit a dog. The dog, they stopped, got out of the car. They said the dog had a leg growing out of its left flank and a leg growing out of its right flank. They said that the leg was half the length of the dog's legs. They said the dog was a lab mix, a small lab mix. They thought it was dead. They walked back to the car. It was in the headlights. Walked back to the car to get a blanket because they just did not want to leave it at the side of the road. And on the way back with the blanket, it got up and looked at them and then ran off down into the desert, into the night. And they couldn't find it. They said they looked and looked and looked, but they never saw it.
Oh, brother.
So anyway, there were animals like this. Well, in the summer, I had a friend who was a police officer, and he called one night, and he said, "You're not working on Friday night. Why don't you do a ride-along?" And I'm like, "Hey, great, no problem." Ridgecrest is not really, a big spot for a lot of excitement, so I thought, what the heck.
Sure.
So we were having dinner, and we got a call, and some woman out in Inyokern, once again, out in Inyokern, called and had complained about a week straight, saying that there was a bear going through her trash can. Mm-hmm. And she called, and nobody paid any attention. She said, "I want somebody out here now." So they called my friend, and we went out there, and he told me, "You stay in the car." I'm like, "Yeah, right, sure." So I got out of the car with him. We walked around. She was out in Inyokern. There's mobile homes. There's not any houses, just to set the picture. There were 3 rows of mobile homes that went down about a mile. They're each on about an acre. And down at the very end of one of these little dirt roads was a big dumpster. And this woman was standing on the porch of her mobile home. Her dogs were in the front yard barking at this creature, and we went around. We heard this grunting noise. Go around the corner of the fence where the bush is, and we see what we thought was a bear. But there are no bears in the desert. But when it turned around, I could not believe my eyes. And my friend Daryl just about, I just...
Try me. Give me the best description.
It was about 7 feet tall. Daryl was he's been deceased for a while, but he was 6'3". So I know this thing had to have been about 7 feet. It was upright like a man. It had greenish-brown fur all over it. It wasn't ape-like. It was definitely a male. And I don't think I need to tell you how I knew that, but it smelled terrible of blood, urine, feces. It was terrible, but it made no apparent action towards us. It was like, audience, went back to dumpster diving. He pulled out a sack of Carl's Jr. hamburger stuff and was eating. He didn't care that we were standing there.
Yes.
And the woman was standing there screaming at us, "Get that thing out of my garbage can."
I'm sure.
And
so what'd you do?
So anyway, I just yelled at it. I said, "Hey!" I mean, when it looked at me, I swear it looked like it had human eyes. They didn't glow red like an animal. It was acting kind of like a human that had been out in the forest for all of its life. And it didn't try to come at us. It didn't scream at us. It just grunted and was looking for food. It was just foraging. That's all it was doing.
Then what? It just left?
The woman shot her shotgun up in the air because she didn't want it out there anymore. And the dogs were barking, and it just lumbered off. It didn't run screaming off into the night. It just lumbered
the bottom
off.
line to this story, Kate, is you believe that Roger and his friends at China Lake
Yes, I do.
were conducting some kind of post-Roswell genetic research, and all these weird things were showing up in the desert. I really appreciate your story.
Yes. May I finish off?
Yes.
Okay. I never saw Roger again. That was in 1977. I ran across Roger in 1992 in San Diego. I was down visiting relatives at a supermarket, and I saw him shopping in a supermarket. Again, I called out Roger. He didn't turn around, so I went and tapped him on the shoulder, and he said, "Oh, my God, you cannot be seen talking to me." He said, "Kate, I'm supposed to be dead. You've got to get away from me." And I was just kind of stunned, and it's very hard to stun me, and I didn't say much, and he turned around and walked away. In the year 2003, I hadn't seen or heard about Roger. I mean, it's not like we exchanged Christmas cards.
Yeah.
I received a phone call, I believe it was in August of 2003, from one of his friends. He said he was a friend of Roger's, and that Roger had somewhat retired to his place in Connecticut or close to there.
Okay, we're short on time now.
Roger was murdered. He told me Roger was murdered, had been executed, kind of like mafia style, in his front living room. He didn't show up for his fishing trip in the morning, and so his friend went to look for him, and they found him. He found him murdered, and it never hit the papers. He said that what he called was a sweeper team. Black vehicles showed up and removed his body, and nobody ever heard anything. There was no obituary or anything, and his friend said he was leaving the country because he was fearing for his life.
And you swear all of this is true, Kate?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you very, very much. You have a good night. That's Kate. All of this material is coming from average people. Dare we go back on my Area 51 line? You're on the air. Hello.
Yeah, you got some less than credible people talking to you earlier.
I've got some what?
Less than credible people talking to you earlier.
Are you one of them?
No. I'll tell you what, though.
You are not an Area 51 employee?
Here's how you find out. Ask them how they pay for their meals. Ask them what color the second door is they go in, and ask them how they get there.
You are an Area 51 employee.
Well, that remains to be seen. Just ask them those three questions. They're rather unique.
All right, roll over those again. How they pay for the meals is one, right?
Mm-hmm.
The color of the second door?
Mm-hmm.
The trouble is that I'm not going to know. I mean, how am I going to know?
I'll tell you off the air if you like.
Well, I can't do it off the air.
Okay.
All right, what was the third thing? It was the color of the first and second door?
No, color of the second door.
Second door, and what else?
How they pay for their meals.
Yeah, I got those two. What else?
How they get there.
Oh, how they get there. Mm-hmm. Well, I know one way they get there. They get there by bus. Some fly. Right?
Also ask them what they do with the trash.
They probably drop it down a big hole where it enters our water table and we drink it. You are an Area 51 employee, aren't you? Come on, own up to it.
I'm afraid I can't do that. Have a good evening.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, he was a real McCoy, you could tell. Well, all right, future Area 51 employees, I now have 3 critical questions to which I don't have the real answer, so you could lie your tail ends off to me and I wouldn't know.
Hey, I got this. You're not going to believe this. Back in the 77, 78, when I was a kid, I worked in a gas station, and I was cleaning up one night, and I found this device. I didn't know what it was. And it looked like one of those lighting ballasts you find in lighting fixtures, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. It's kind of shaped like like you find in the industrial lighting ballasts, like in a big factory or something. Okay. And it didn't have any wires, and it was really heavy, and I was cleaning up, and I moved it, and it was shaped like about 20 inches long, about 4 inches wide, 2 inches deep.
It was round. It was round, right?
No, it was square like a bar of gold, you know. But
okay.
It looked like a lighting ballast, you know,
right,
with the wires coming out of it.
Right. Only no wires.
Yes, no wires. And I moved it, and I went to put it back after I cleaned up the place. It looked like it had been sitting there for years. And well, I was told later, I found out from my boss that he got this device from a friend who worked in the the police department. I was in the Chicago area at the time.
Right.
And he had it since the 60s, and he said that his friend told him that this was developed by NASA, and what it was. Why I asked him was because when I picked it up to put it back in, I grabbed it by the center, and you know it's long, about 20 inches long and 4 inches wide and 2 inches deep all the way across. You know what I mean? Got it. And I went to twirl it like a baton from the center,
Yes.
and this thing acted like a gyroscope. I mean, it had, you know, like when you grab a bicycle or something and you try to move it from both ends on the axle. Yes. This thing, the faster you twirled it, the harder it got to move. And I'm like, what is this thing? So I asked him the next day, and he tells me, well, yeah, I got that from a buddy of mine, and we used to use them in our stock cars. All the police cars have them in major cities at that time, he told me, and all the highway patrol. And what they do is they stabilize the car. They're made by NASA. Apparently they use them in their rockets or something. But he said that...
Boy, that's a new one on me.
Yeah, I never heard of it. And I'm like, this thing's old, you know? And it's like sheet metal stamped, and it had no openings anywhere.
So
I
you're
couldn't tell
telling
how it was welded
me
together or nothing, you know?
You're telling me there's a device that you can put in vehicles or other things that will stabilize them at high speed.
No power supply or nothing.
Make turns more possible than they were. This is a technology I've never heard of.
I grabbed the ends and tried to twirl it. The faster you try to twirl it, the harder it was to make it.
Yeah, I get the picture.
Unbelievable.
I get the
and
picture.
He told me this, and he said, oh, yeah, they developed this, NASA developed this, and they gave it to the police departments, and they said, oh, no. They were going to give it to the public, and they decided not to.
No kidding. I wonder.
Yeah, man.
Well, that's way cool.
And he's like, I asked him, I said, oh, yeah, we use it in our stock cars. We want a lot of races and stuff. Made the car track true, man. It's unbelievable.
Well, they sure are going to the select few then, aren't they?
Yeah, so apparently he got it from a friend of his. I don't know how he got it, but...
Well, that's a whale of a story.
So he had it since the 60s, I estimated, because they had some trophies when they used to race stock cars, and I was working there in 78, so...
All right, got it, sir. Thank you very much. Take care. That's pretty cool if there really is something like that. And the properties he described, as he would turn it harder, it would become harder to turn, would, if you think about it, apply to the use that he claimed it was being used for. But you would think if the police and certain civilian agencies or whatever knew about this device, that we would all know about it, right?
How you doing, Art?
Okay,
Robert?
sir. Where are you?
I'm in Colorado.
All right.
Calling from Denver, and I was deer hunting about 4 years ago with a partner in high country buck hunt, and we backpacked into a wilderness area in north central Colorado, and we were there for 2 days, and we spotted 2 nice bucks, and we were preparing for a shot when the bucks spooked and ran up a draw. And at first we thought it was a bear. That was approximately 250, 300 yards away, and it turned out to be a Bigfoot. Jumped out, grabbed this deer, broke its neck. And the second one...
Broke its neck?
Broke its neck. And the second one came up out of the bushes. What he had did is he had spooked these deer up to the first one up on top. They carried it over the hill, and I guess they presumed to eat it or whatever. And me and my partner were kind of freaked out about all this, and we were in there about 8 miles.
Well, first of all, I've heard reports both ways, that Bigfoot is a vegetarian, that Bigfoot is a meat eater. Maybe both. Robert?
Yes, they're definitely an omnivore just like we are.
So then this report doesn't surprise you?
Oh, absolutely not. They hunt for meat. They are, it seems like a primary vegetarian at first glance because of the greeneries that they do eat. But no, they're hunters just like we are, hunter-gatherers.
Well, they didn't like us in their area. 2 days later, when we got back to our humble, meager camp, one of them must have picked up a boulder approximately 2 feet in diameter and placed it in the center of our tent. And there was a stick in the trail that was broken off a tree, and it was forked, and it was pointing down trail. And this is kind of gruesome, but there was an eyeball with a stick pierced through it laying on top of the stick.
Oh, my God.
He's telling you it's time for you to exit stage left.
Yeah, once you saw the boulder in the middle of the tent, that's a real big hint there.
Well, the nearest boulders of that size were about half a mile
that's even
up the creek and up the ridge.
That's even a bigger hint, see?
Exactly. We exited that area.
I carried this massive thing up here, and I put it on your tent, see?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't a fun trip. We weren't successful.
That's incredible. Robert, again, this kind of behavior?
Oh, sure. Yeah, of course. And there's no problem. To me, there's no problem because there was no violence done to anyone. All they did was say, excuse me, this is our area. We'd rather that you leave. They didn't throw any stones at you. They didn't hit you. They didn't try to kill you. They didn't scream at you. Nothing like that. They just gave you a...
Yeah, but it's like the mafia asking you if you want to buy fire insurance for your store.
Exactly. Well, it was their hunting grounds, you know. We put up no trespassing signs. Well, so did they. I don't have any problem with that.
Caller?
Yes. Well, we heard some sounds. The first night there, we heard it sounded like a mountain lion, is what we thought they were. Approximately 4 or 5 of them that surrounded us in this high country basin. And upon seeing that mule deer buck getting dispatched that easily, and these creatures weren't small. At first, we thought it was a bear, but when it stood erect and picked this mature buck up that probably weighed 250 and put it over its shoulder, I would estimate that they were probably 8.5 feet tall, both of them, dark-haired. That's all we can tell.
Did you happen to take a look at the pictures on my website?
No, I haven't yet.
I would be very interested in your opinion of which resembles what you saw.
Okay, I can give you a fast blast later on.
Would you?
Well, yeah, I'd have to get off the line to look up the internet.
I understand. All right.
But
Robert, any other questions for this?
No,
it's pretty interesting stuff.
It's pretty interesting because you see, you were given warning. The 3 or 4 or 5 lion calls around. You know darn well 5 lions don't hunt together. So this means they were great imitators, and they gave you a message. The first time, by screaming around your camp, you didn't leave. So then they decided, okay, now you watched us hunt. That's enough of this nonsense. So they put a rock in your place and showed you the way down the trail. I would say that's pretty darn sophisticated. Now, a tiger wouldn't have done that, would he?
No.
Oh, no.
No, he would have attacked.
And Robert, suppose they had idiotically ignored all this and somehow resurrected their tent and remained the night, what would probably have happened?
They would have probably tried to scare you by throwing rocks close to your head but not hitting you. They're not going to overtly attack you. Now, if you didn't leave then, believe it or not, they would have left. Myself, I go into their areas constantly. I never, ever carry a gun. I don't need it.
Well, we were prepared to defend ourselves, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, but you did beat feet down the track, right?
Oh, well, yeah. We picked up what we could and what was left over, and needless to say, we couldn't move that boulder.
Yeah, well, those are obvious, really strong signs. Boulder, middle of tent, eyeball, pointing stick, goodbye. So you did the right thing, of course.
Now, you see, a judge would not have convicted you had, or you wouldn't think so, had that not worked, you gone on hunting, and one of them would have perceived to have attacked you, at least put himself in a position you fired, right?
Oh, no, I wouldn't have been scared about that at all going to court.
Exactly.
And I don't think it would have stood up in court, and I don't think there would even have been a court trial because I'd probably be a very wealthy man at this time.
Well, I don't know about that, but...
I'd probably have a price on my head from PETA
maybe,
or whatever, but I'm sure
sir.
He would have been over my mantle.
Yeah, that would have been that.
Or a big museum's mantle somewhere. All right, thank you very much. Whoa, what an interesting story.
Yeah, that's not unusual.
So you've heard of hunting practices like that?
Oh, absolutely.
And you've seen them leave signs of because it indicates magnitude of intelligence, obviously. So
they have thrown rocks so close, right near my wife's head.
Well, throwing rocks, that's fairly primitive. Right up there with clubbing, but
well, I don't know about that. Art, over there.
Well, if you intentionally miss, now I'll give you that.
Palestinians are getting shot for throwing rocks.
Oh, what a good point.
Art Bell?
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
I'm okay. Where are you?
I'm calling from Columbia, South Carolina.
All right.
Did any other listeners out there happen to watch the Oprah show yesterday?
Oprah? No, I didn't see it. I'm sorry.
Okay, I seen something on there that I've never seen in my life.
What?
They had a young girl on there. I think she was about 10 or 11 years old.
Right.
And she had 2 heads.
No, they didn't.
They did. She was on there with her parents.
Not.
She had 2 heads. Literally, she had 2 heads.
I don't believe you.
Well, I've been listening to you since about 2 o'clock this morning.
All right. Could both heads speak?
Yes, both heads could speak, and the head on the right controlled the right side of the body,
yeah,
and the head on the left controlled the left side of the body. And what amazed me was that the head wasn't deformed in any kind of way or nothing. Nice-looking young girl. And the father and mother was there, and they showed videotapes of when they were born and when they were like 2 years old playing outside and everything. And
do the heads independently think?
Yes. And they were,
really? I mean, you swear on the Bible, on the TV Guide of Daytime Television, this is true?
I do, and I am a religious person, and that's why I was so amazed.
Would you think that there would be two souls involved?
Yes, I would, because you have two different minds there, you know.
If you married this girl, would it be a crime? I mean, these girls?
Well, they probably would have to agree on the person that they would marry.
I would certainly hope so.
Yeah, but that's fascinating to see that, though.
And then too, if there was a divorce as a result of that marriage, would she get 2/3? Would they get 2/3?
Well, that's food for thought.
The whole thing is, I never heard of a two-headed girl before. That's remarkable.
Like, that's why I called in, because I said, well, I didn't hear anybody call in, you know, that seen it.
Well, they should have.
You know, so I said, well, let me call in and throw this out there.
We could have talked about this half the night. A two-headed, holy.
That's why I hate, because like, you can ready to go off the air pretty soon, right?
I'm going off the air now. I mean, it's like I'm totally out of time. So from South Carolina, you're going to get the honors tonight. You know what to do?
No.
You don't?
No.
Do you know how to say good night, America?
Oh, good night, America, and God bless everyone.